What if I told you that right now, in January 2026, the future of warfare has already arrived and almost nobody is talking about it? I'm not talking about some science fiction movie. I'm talking about real autonomous killer drones, powered by artificial intelligence, hunting and killing Russian soldiers without any human control. These aren't just prototypes, they're in mass production. Ukrainian forces are deploying them by the thousands every single day. And here's what they're not telling you. This technology is so advanced, so game-changing, that Russian military analysts are calling it unstoppable. They literally wrote in their official reports that there are no effective countermeasures against it, and none are expected in the near future. Think about that for a second. The world's second most powerful military just admitted they can't stop Ukraine's AI drones. So buckle up, because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you understand this war, and honestly, how you understand the future of all wars. This is the story of how Ukraine became the birthplace of killer robots, and why Russia is absolutely terrified. Let me paint you a picture of what's actually happening on the battlefield right now. It's a warm morning near Borisivka, a tiny occupied village right on the Russian border. A Ukrainian drone pilot named Lipa is sitting in a van somewhere safe, wearing goggles that show him a live video feed from a small gray quadcopter flying over ravaged fields. Russian soldiers have set up a drone team in abandoned warehouses. 2 other Ukrainian pilots already tried hitting them with standard kamikaze drones. Russian electronic warfare systems, these powerful radio jammers, shut them both down. The drones crashed uselessly. This is Lipa's 3rd try, but this time he's flying something completely different. A Bumblebee, an AI-powered autonomous drone provided by Schmidt, the former CEO of Google and one of the richest men on Earth. Lipa's navigator, Bober, confirms the target on a digital map. Locked in, Lipa says. Then, and this is where it gets absolutely wild, Lipa toggles a switch and unleashes the drone from human control. The Bumblebee, now powered entirely by artificial intelligence, sweeps down on its own. It loses signal connection with the pilots. Doesn't matter. Its sensors and software remain focused on the building, adjusting heading and speed independently with zero human input. Another drone live streams the result. The Bumblebee smacks into an exterior wall and explodes. Human-piloted drones couldn't get through the jamming, but the AI drone hit its target perfectly. They will change their location now, Lipa says calmly. This actually happened. This is real, and it's happening thousands of times every single day. Now here's the catch. Throughout all of 2025, in largely unseen moments, just like that warehouse strike, the era of killer robots quietly began taking shape on the Ukrainian battlefield. By last spring, Bumblebees launched from Ukrainian positions had already carried out more than 1,000 combat flights against Russian targets, according to manufacturer documents. Pilots say they've flown thousands more since then. And Bumblebees are just one type. Ukraine has at least 100 companies working on AI drone technology right now. We're talking about an entire industry that emerged from nothing in less than 3 years. Let me give you some numbers that will blow your mind. Ukraine produced approximately 2 million drones in 2024. 96.2% of all UAVs that Ukrainian armed forces used in 2024 were made domestically, and they're not stopping. Ukrainian officials say they can now produce more than 4 million drones annually. 4 million. That's industrial mobilization on a scale we haven't seen since World War II. And an increasing percentage of those drones are AI-enabled, capable of hunting targets autonomously. But here's what mainstream media isn't explaining. Why did this happen? Why did Ukraine become the birthplace of autonomous weapons? The answer is brutal necessity combined with Russian adaptations. In early 2023, Ukrainian forces were building about 200 first-person view FPV quadcopters per month. These are small, explosive-laden hobbyist drones, cheap and deadly. At first, they were devastatingly effective, but Russia adapted fast. They erected poles and strung mesh to catch drones. They covered tanks and armored vehicles with protective cages and netting. Most importantly, they deployed powerful electronic warfare jammers everywhere, flooding the radio frequencies that pilots use to control drones. Success rates plummeted. Early FPV drones hit their targets maybe 10% of the time when facing heavy jamming. That's 90% failure. For Ukrainian engineers and coders watching their technology become obsolete in real time, this was an existential crisis. Either figure out how to beat the jamming or watch Russian forces overwhelm Ukraine's defenses. That's when artificial intelligence entered the picture. A young Ukrainian physicist named Nazar Bigun saw the problem clearly. If radio signals get jammed, you need drones that don't rely on radio signals in the final attack phase. You need computer vision and autonomous flight control that can take over when communications fail. In 2024, Bigun co-founded a company called Norda Dynamics. They created a small module called Underdog that attaches to combat drones. When a pilot wearing FPV goggles flies the drone near a target, they can choose something called pixel lock. A window zooms in on the target, whether it's a building, a tank, or a truck. The pilot approves the autonomous attack. Then Underdog takes over completely. The drone hunts that target using artificial intelligence. No more human control needed. Early versions could autonomously strike from 400 meters away. By summer 2025, the fifth version of Norda's software extended pixel lock to 2,000 meters. That's about 1.25 miles of fully autonomous terminal attack. By the end of 2025, Norda Dynamics had provided frontline units more than 50,000 Underdog modules, 50,000 autonomous attack systems deployed in a single year. But Norda isn't even the most advanced system out there. That title probably belongs to Eric Schmidt's Bumblebee. Let me tell you why Russian military intelligence is so terrified of this thing. In April 2025, just 2 days after Bumblebees destroyed a Russian armored vehicle, the Center for Integrated Unmanned Solutions, a Russian drone manufacturing business outside Moscow, issued emergency findings from their analysis of a captured Bumblebee. They nicknamed it Martianin, Russian for Martian, because the technology seemed almost alien. Their report described a mystery drone with chipsets and motherboard of the highest quality, matching the level of the world's leading microelectronics manufacturers. They concluded that despite current limitations, the technology will demonstrate its effectiveness, and its range of uses will continue to expand. A month later, another Russian analysis group published a 49-page report loaded with warnings. The author, Alexander Lyubimov, who organizes combat drone exhibitions in Russia, wrote that the Bumblebee poses a serious threat and asserted that there are no effective countermeasures against it and none are expected in the near future. Think about what that means. Russia is admitting they can't stop this weapon. So what makes Bumblebee so special? It's the convergence of multiple autonomous features into one weapon. First, it has redundant communications and frequency hopping that makes it incredibly resistant to jamming. Second, it uses visual inertial odometry for navigation, meaning it knows where it is by looking at the terrain, not by GPS or radio signals. Third, and this is genuinely frightening, Bumblebee's software can autonomously recognize targets. It overlays bright green squares on items of interest appearing in video feeds, highlighting potential targets including foot soldiers, bunkers, vehicles, and other drones, often before human pilots can even spot them. Ukrainian pilots say Bumblebee is one of the only drones that is ready out of the box. Add an explosive charge and begin work. No complicated setup, no extensive training required. According to a sales pamphlet in limited circulation, Bumblebees have an over 70% direct hit rate via autonomous terminal guidance. 70%. Compare that to the 10% hit rate of early human-piloted drones against heavy jamming. And here's where this gets even crazier. Bumblebees can be controlled over the internet. Ukrainian pilots are operating these drones from hundreds of miles away. In summer 2025, Eric Schmidt visited Kiev and watched a Cartier Brigade team fly a Bumblebee from a ground station in Kiev. The drone launched outside Kharkiv, passed over enemy lines, and hit a Russian military van from roughly 300 miles away. 300 miles. This isn't just a drone. This is a long-range precision strike system that ignores electronic warfare. Schmidt's operation, which is operated under names including White Stork, Project Eagle, and Swift Beat, has also supplied Ukraine with Hornet, a medium-range fixed-wing strike drone with an 11-pound payload and range exceeding 90 miles. A sales pamphlet advertised future monthly production of more than 6,000 units per month. And they've developed Merops, an AI-powered anti-drone interceptor for shooting down Iranian Shahed drones that attack Ukrainian cities nightly. Ukrainian officials say Merops has a hit rate as high as 95%. But Schmidt's weapons are just part of a much larger ecosystem. Another Ukrainian company called The Fourth Law, founded by serial entrepreneur Yaroslav Azhnyuk, produces the TFL-1 autonomy module. This adds target lock capability to any third-party FPV drone for just $150. That's only 20% added cost, but it increases mission success rates by a factor of 2 to 4 according to field tests. In early September 2025, Fourth Law announced the TfL-1 had received NATO codification. By mid-September, they partnered with Virai, one of Ukraine's biggest FPV makers. The new Virai 10 TfL-1 costs just $448, making AI-enabled autonomous attack drones competitive in price with standard FPVs. Reports in Ukrainian military media claim that as of late 2025, TfL drones had achieved a 90% plus hit rate. Other AI systems from companies like Auterion were claiming 100% hit rates during early deployment. Ukrainian officials suggest the overall hit rate for AI drones is around 80%. Let me put that in perspective for you. An unskilled novice pilot with a standard human-controlled drone hits targets maybe 20% of the time. Mid-range pilots hit 40 to 50%. Only highly skilled pilots reach 70 to 80%. But an AI-enabled drone with even a novice pilot achieves 80% or higher. The AI roughly quadruples the effectiveness of an unskilled operator. This is a force multiplier of staggering proportions. Ukraine has a manpower shortage. They cannot train thousands of expert drone pilots fast enough to replace losses, but they can manufacture AI modules and attach them to cheap drones, instantly creating weapons that perform like expert systems. This changes everything, and the effects are already visible in casualty statistics. Andrew Perpetua, an open-source intelligence analyst whose team meticulously documents every single video posted of a drone attack in Ukraine, reports that December 2025 was by far the deadliest month for Russian forces, with 184 deaths per day from drones alone, up 37% over the average. Kill boards maintained by Ukraine's uncrewed systems forces show a similar dramatic spike in drone kills starting in late October 2025. That's exactly when the second generation of AI drones started appearing in large numbers. Tommy Lund, a defense analyst, noted on social media in December that from late October, a new user interface appeared on Ukrainian drone videos showing when drones were locked on targets. But more importantly, he observed that AI was making smaller target boxes within targets on weak spots. The AI can also recognize human shapes. These are capabilities that first-generation AI drones in early 2024 promised but failed to deliver. Now they're delivering at scale. But here's something that should genuinely worry everyone watching this. The technology is evolving beyond simple target lock. Ukrainian companies are now developing swarm capabilities. A company called Sign Engineering created a system called Pasika, Ukrainian for apiary, which allows a single pilot to control dozens of drones through automated launch, navigation, and hovering. The drones loiter together in a pre-attack phase, waiting for commands. Then, pilots can take manual control for massed attacks with brief intervals between strikes. Or, and this is the terrifying part, the entire swarm could potentially be controlled by AI, creating dense waves of autonomous attack drones facing ground assaults with no human delay. Another company, X-Drone, has gone even further. Their founder told journalists they're loading facial recognition technology into drones that could identify, then kill specific people. They're coupling flight control and navigation software with large language models, so the drone becomes an agent. You can literally speak to the drone like, fly to right, 100 meters. What do we see? Do you see a window? Fly inside the window. By late 2025, X-Drone had provided Ukrainian units more than 30,000 AI-enhanced weapons. And here's where we cross into genuinely uncharted ethical territory. X-Drone has developed software that allows drones to attack Russian soldiers with or without a human in the loop. The founder says the software allows remote human pilots to abort attacks, but when communications fail, human control becomes impossible. In those cases, the drones hunt alone. This is not science fiction. This is happening right now. Peter Asaro, vice chair of the Stop Killer Robots campaign and a professor at the New School, warned that the development of increasing autonomy in drones raises serious questions about human rights and protection of civilians. The capacity to autonomously select targets is a moral line that should not be crossed. Machines cannot fathom the distinction between inanimate objects and people, he said. They are amoral. But Ukrainians coding these systems counter that this is about survival. Nazar Begun, the physicist who created Underdog, visits the Field of Mars Cemetery in Lviv regularly. It reached capacity in December 2025 with almost 1,300 graves. Lviv opened a second cemetery, which by Christmas held 14 fresh mounds. Standing beside graves of friends killed in the war, Begun says, "This is where I feel the price we pay, and it motivates me to move forward." That moral tension, that clash between humanitarian concerns and desperate survival needs, is playing out in real time on Ukrainian battlefields. And here's the thing. Russia is developing its own AI weapons, too. Examinations of downed Russian drones by conflict armament research show Russia adopting AI-enhanced capabilities. Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's first deputy prime minister, says AI-powered drones are at the center of a new arms race. We are trying to stimulate development of every stage of autonomy, he said. We need to develop and buy more autonomous drones. Ukraine produced 2 million drones in 2024. Russia reportedly plans to double its drone army to over 165,000 by 2026. Both sides are investing billions. The Pentagon is now contracting with Ukrainian companies like Vermeer to develop similar systems for American forces. Eric Schmidt's technology is being deployed on NATO's eastern flank. What started in Ukraine is spreading globally. So where does this go? Here's my assessment based on everything I've researched. First, the technology will continue improving at breakneck speed. Drones that can fly further, identify more target types, work cooperatively in larger swarms, and make increasingly complex decisions autonomously. Second, costs will continue dropping. When AI autonomy modules cost $150 and complete attack drones cost under $500, any nation, any militant group, potentially even individuals, can access this technology. Third, the ethical guardrails that humanitarian organizations advocate for, things like keeping humans in the loop, will likely be ignored by many actors. Eric Schmidt has emphasized the necessity of human oversight, but he also pointed out that Russia and China do not have this doctrine. The arms race is happening without mutually accepted rules. Fourth, and this is crucial, the technology demonstrated in Ukraine will proliferate rapidly. If a serial entrepreneur with a film degree can create a company that manufactures visual navigation systems for drones in a Brooklyn office beside a bagel shop, and those systems successfully guide strikes into Russia, what does that tell you about barriers to entry? They're basically non-existent. And here's what really keeps me up at night. These AI-enabled drones are being tested and refined in the most intense live fire conditions possible. Every flight generates data. Every strike or miss teaches the software something new. Engineers push updates remotely to combat units who download them overnight. The feedback loop from battlefield to developer to improved software back to battlefield is measured in days, sometimes hours. This is evolution at digital speed. A Ukrainian captain responsible for integrating new tech into the 13th Kardia Brigade said everybody thinks you're making Skynet, referencing the killer AI from the Terminator movies. No, the technology is interesting, but it's a first step and there are many more steps. It's like the staircase of the Empire State Building, he said. That's how many steps there are, and we are inside the building, but only on the first floor. Only the first floor. Think about that. What we're seeing now, autonomous drones that can hunt and kill without human control, that's just the beginning. Let me give you one more detail that really drives this home. In late 2025, a Ukrainian pilot named Serhii, who serves as chief technical consultant for the Kardia Brigade, described testing 15 different semi-autonomous terminal attack drones from various manufacturers. Bumblebee was the best, he said, and he recounted a coordinated strike where 3 Bumblebees and 1 standard FPV drone destroyed a Russian 152mm howitzer inside Russia, protected under a bunker. The first Bumblebee dove into camouflage netting and set it on fire. The second breached the roof. The standard FPV plunged inside. Then the final Bumblebee hovered overhead and scattered 10 small anti-personnel landmines around the site to prevent Russians from approaching. The strikes were timed 2 minutes or less apart. This is combined arms warfare executed by robots, and Ukrainian forces have repeated this tactic many times. Bumblebees are so valuable that units only assign them to high-priority missions, hunting for artillery and logistics vehicles deep behind enemy lines, carrying relay transmitters to extend ranges of other drones, and delivering packets of blood to bunkers where medics stabilize wounded soldiers. So, what should you take away from all this? 3 things. 1, autonomous weapons are not coming. They're here. They're in mass production and daily combat use. 2, Ukraine has become the world's first military force to reorganize around AI-enabled unmanned weapons. They're not just testing prototypes. They're fielding tens of thousands of these systems and building infrastructure to produce millions more. 3, what's being developed in Ukraine right now will define warfare for the next 50 years. Just like World War I saw the debut of tanks, machine guns, and aircraft, and World War II refined those technologies and added nuclear weapons, the war in Ukraine is the proving ground for autonomous AI weapons that will spread across the globe. You're watching history happen in real time. The robot age of warfare is being born right now in the fields and cities of Ukraine. And honestly, the world is completely unprepared for what comes next. Because here's the final thing they're not telling you. Once this technology exists, once it's been proven to work, once manufacturing processes are established and costs drop to consumer electronics levels, you cannot put this genie back in the bottle. AI-enabled autonomous weapons will proliferate. They will be copied, improved, weaponized by state and non-state actors across every continent. 10 years from now, maybe 5, conflicts everywhere will feature these weapons. Urban warfare, counterinsurgency, terrorism, border conflicts, all of it will be transformed by cheap autonomous drones that can hunt humans without human control. The Pentagon knows this. That's why they're racing to develop countermeasures and their own systems. China knows this, Russia knows this, and Ukraine, by necessity, by survival instinct, became the first to truly weaponize AI at scale. The question isn't whether this technology will spread. It's spreading right now. The question is whether humanity can develop international norms, treaties, safeguards that prevent the worst possible outcomes. And based on the current arms race, I'm not optimistic. But I'll leave you with this. Ukraine didn't choose to become the birthplace of killer robots. They were invaded by a much larger power that forced them to innovate or die. Russian artillery, missiles, and overwhelming numbers pushed Ukrainian engineers and coders to create weapons that could fight back asymmetrically. The result is technology that may ultimately determine who wins this war and will definitely determine how all future wars are fought. Whether you find that inspiring, terrifying, or some combination of both, one thing is absolutely certain. The future arrived in 2026. It's powered by artificial intelligence, and it's already changing everything. Stay informed. Share this video. This is the story mainstream media isn't covering deeply enough. The robot revolution is here, and you just watched it unfold.